Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Phlox. So today we're going to be going through episode 2 of our Dungeon Boss Guide series for season 4, and today we're going to be going through Brackenhide Hollow. So I'm going to go through each boss on a VOD here of my key, and I'm going to kind of explain how I play each boss and when I'm using my defensives and when I'm using my damage cooldowns. Quickly though, before we jump in, if you guys like the video, please leave a like or comment down below and let me know, or subscribe for more content in the future. Thank you. So for the first boss, we have three enemies. We have Gashtooth, Trick Totem, and Rira Hackclaw. For this boss, normally Trick Totem is the one that gets prioed down first. So you just want to make sure you have all three dotted at all times, and then you're just dumping all your Devouring Plagues and doing your single target rotation onto Trick Totem. As far as your damage cooldown goes, there's nothing you really need to play around here for damage cooldowns. You can pretty much just send your stuff on CD throughout the fight. So starting out here, let me slow this down really quick. So starting out here, Gashtooth is going to cast this ability called Gash Frenzy. While this is going out, you want to make sure you have a defensive ability up. Because as you go into higher keys, the initial damage from this can get close to one-shotting you, and it is a bleed that starts ticking. And again, if you go into higher keys, the bleed is going to tick for more and more. So if you have a defensive up, you lower like the initial damage, which is going to leave your health a little bit higher, and you're going to be less susceptible to dying. So generally, before this goes out, you want to just have like a fade and flash heal up. If it hits you and you're like really low, you can Desperate Prayer to heal yourself up a little bit. Or you can also disperse just to pretty much leave you at max health, and you won't really have a bleed for that long, and the initial damage isn't going to do that much. I generally like to save disperse for another ability, which I'll point out here in a second. But you can use disperse for that if you want. And then also, as a bonus, if you are a dwarf, you can racial off the bleed from Gash Frenzy, which is just going to make the bleed go away instantly, and your healer can just top you off. So you're going to see here, he starts jumping. He jumps to everyone one at a time, and it's kind of random. So you just want to make sure you have defenses before it goes out, because you don't really know when you're going to get hit. So you'll see there, he just jumps to everyone once, and it left a bleed, but our healer was really good at having us all hotted before the stuff went out, so we just all instantly got topped. And then another thing, so you're going to see here that Trick Totem is casting Earth Bolt throughout the fight. So pretty much what your group is going to do is just rotate kicks on Earth Bolt. So you just want to be helping out to kick this as it's going off. Sometimes your tank might be calling it. If you're not in comms, just kind of pay attention to your kick tracker and make sure you are helping to kick this. Try to make sure you are kicking ones that aren't on the tank. So she does target it at a random person, and I have a target tracker right here. So if it is on the tank, you can pretty much just let it go, but if it's on anyone else, you kind of want to kick it. And then also she's going to periodically cast this ability instead of Earth Bolt. It's Greater Healing Rapids. So this you don't need to kick because you can just purge it off as a priest. DHs can also purge it off, and I believe mages can also spell steal the buff. So this you can pretty much just let go. Just make sure like you are purging it very, very soon. As soon as it goes off, you can see right there. I purged it. You want to purge that as soon as possible because it'll start healing the boss up very slowly, which is going to make the fight take a lot longer. So it is okay to let it go off, just make sure you're purging it as soon as possible. And then, so this is the other ability that Gashtooth casts, which is marked for Butchery. He just targets a random person, and what he'll do is he'll start doing a high amount of single target damage to that one person. So this is the thing I like to save Disperse for. If it goes on you, just because you'll pretty much just negate all the damage this does. It's like a 2 or 3 second channeled ability, so for 2 or 3 seconds he's going to be doing damage to you, and if you're dispersed it'll just negate all that damage. However, if you don't have disperse, you can always just fade and flash heal, and you'll get 20% DR for that whole channel. And then so the other ability that's going to go off is this Blade Storm right here by Rira. She's just going to do like an AoE around her and she'll fixate on one person. So this circle will just start moving towards someone else. This you just pretty much need to dodge and just stay out of it. You'll see right here, she's on the paladin. So it's going to start moving and the circle just kind of goes with them. Pretty easy, just dodge it. If it gets fixated on you, just try to not like kite it through the group here on top of the bosses. So like if this blade storm got fixated on me right now, I would try to move like out over here. So that way the circle will start going out over here. Because if I was standing right here, the circle would be going onto the bosses and then the melee and the tank cannot hit them. So you kind of want to position that in a good spot. And it might, sometimes it'll get fixated on people like behind you or around you. So just try to make sure you are paying attention if that circle starts moving towards you. But other than that, we're kind of just repeating mechanics. It's kind of like on a cycle. So what the fight will start out with is with like a gash frenzy. It'll start out with a gash frenzy, and then Rira's gonna do the marked for butchery, and then following that, Rira's gonna do the blade storm, and then after that, we're gonna get this next mechanic from Trick Totem, where she's gonna spawn a totem. Let me speed it up really quick. So right here, Rira spawns a Hex Trick Totem. So what that does is it like polymorphs the healer. So the healer can't do anything while this totem is up. And then to combo on top of that, the other boss right here is going to cast Decayed Senses. So what this does is it puts a disorient on the tank, and the tank will also not be able to do anything. So when these overlap, it's pretty dangerous because both your tank and your healer can't really do anything. As soon as this totem comes out, you want to prio it and burn it down as soon as possible. So swap to it instantly, dump some DPs. You want to have some insanity pulled for that. Dump some devouring plagues into it and just burn it down as fast as possible. Normally it doesn't take long to kill if you have damage saved up for it. And then the other thing you want to do during the overlap is, as a priest, you can help out the tank by using Mass Dispel. So you'll see here, Decayed Senses is on the tank right now. If I Mass Dispel, this will get taken off the tank. Normally you want to have the healer just able to dispel this, but since the totem is up and the healer can't do anything, they can't dispel. I can Mass Dispel here to save the tank from this Orient, and then he can start doing stuff again. Also, a third ability that will come out and overlap during this time is a Savage Charge from Rira. So what the Savage Charge does is it'll charge to someone and pretty much just one-shot them. This is a tank mechanic. The tank needs to get between you and the boss. So you'll see here the charges on me, and I need to have the tank between me and the boss, or I'm just going to die instantly. So the way you deal with this pretty much is just by burning the totem and dispelling the tank, and then the tank can just get in front of whoever has the charge. But since all this stuff is going on, the tank can't do anything right now. So you'll see here I dispelled the tank. He can move again. Right now we are trying to kill the totem so the healer can do stuff. Also very important during this time, you want to make sure you are kicking earth bolts because the healer can't top anyone off. So if like an earth bolt goes off on someone twice, they're probably going to die. This is pretty much the most dangerous point in the fight where people mostly die. So you'll see there we got rid of the totem. The charge is about to go off, but everyone's pretty much good now. We purge the buff again. And then after this point, pretty much the fight just goes on a rinse and repeat cycle. We do Gash Frenzy. We kick our Earth Bolts. We purge Greater Healing Rapids. Rira's going to do the March for Butchery pretty soon, or the Blade Storm. And then by the time we get to the, I'm going to show you guys the overlap here. So on the second overlap, we don't have Mass Dispel. So we're pretty much without the tank and the healer for this entire thing until the totem gets killed. And you'll see that the bosses start going to other people because the tank can't melee them. So yeah, we just kill the totem fast. The healer gets broken out, immediately dispels the tank. the tank can come get the charge, and we're good. And then we just rinse and repeat the mechanics over and over again. All right, so for Treemouth, as far as your damage cooldowns go, you can pretty much just use your stuff on CD here with no problem. There's nothing you really need to hold or play around for. So periodically, he's gonna mark someone for like a spit, which is decay spray right here. So you'll see it'll just mark a random person. So if you get that on you, you kind of just want to walk to the boss, like closer to the boss, because that'll spawn ads. So if you're close to the boss, the ads will spawn on the boss. The tank can pick up aggro pretty quick, and you can cleave down the ads pretty efficiently. You want to save Shadow Crash for ad sets when they spawn, just so you can help cleave them down fast, and also you get a little bit of funnel. You can dot a few of them if you don't have Shadow Crash. They die pretty fast, so I wouldn't really try to like manually dot all of them. You can maybe dot like one or two, but generally you just want to have like Shadow Crash for that. You're going to see here he just did a frontal called Vine Whip. That's going to be pointed at the tank. Just make sure you're not in the way of that. And then other than that, those are pretty much the two main mechanics. He just spawns the ads, he does the frontal. He's going to do this other ability that somebody has to soak right here. It's called Grasping Vines. So when he does this, somebody has to go in and soak this, or the boss gets like a really big damage buff. So normally the tank is going to do it, and you might rotate like one other person. There's stuff you can do with other classes to kind of like cheese this mechanic. As far as a priest, I'm not really sure of anything you can do to cheese it. If you had something like maybe like a ward or a rage heart and dispersed, you could probably go in and soak it for the tank, because the tank cannot soak every one or he'll just die, because it puts a damage debuff on you, where if you soak it a second time, it'll do more damage to you. So as a priest, generally you're not going to have to worry about going in to soak it. I'm just making you guys aware of the mechanic. And so you'll see while he has somebody in the circle, he has like this damage shield. So as the DPS, you got to kind of burn through the damage shield. I think there we did not burn through it. So immediately following that, he'll spawn an ad set like this. And I believe he only spawns this ad set if you don't break the shield. If you do break the shield, I believe he does not spawn the ad set immediately after it. But then shortly after that, he'll also spawn another ad set. But yeah, that's pretty much the fight. Just spawning ads, dodge the frontal, and then the consume, which you normally won't have to really deal with as a Shadow Priest. You just want to make sure you are helping to burn down the shield, and maybe save a little bit of insanity to help during that phase, to spam some DPs. So for Gutshot, this boss also, as far as damage cooldowns go, you don't really need to save for anything. You kind of just send on CD. So basically, throughout the fight, the boss is going to be spawning these hyenas, which will fixate on random people and also jump around all over the place. And then occasionally you'll get targeted by these traps. Generally, you want to kind of put this closer to the boss, so that melee can, if the hyenas get fixated on melee, they can kind of kite through the traps. Also, the tank needs to help like with positioning for that. But as a priest, you kind of just want to make sure you are playing around the traps. So that way, at any point during the fight, if the hyenas get fixated on you, you can just kite them through the trap, and then kind of run away. If they melee you, you're pretty much most likely going to die instantly. So you want to make sure you are just never near the hyenas. Like if they are right here, I'm gonna make sure I'm right here. And then if they get kited through the trap, I'm gonna kind of move over towards this way, and stand right here next to this trap. Once they go in the trap gets consumed, so it goes away. And then the only other thing is just make sure you can dot the hyenas. just to get some more boss funnel. And the hyenas don't really need to die. They're not really a prio. You can kind of just kite them and CC them for a while. But just make sure you do dot them because you do get a little bit of extra boss funnel. And that's pretty much it. She'll randomly shoot someone from time to time. I haven't really gotten to the area to the point where like the shoot one-shots you, but there may be a point like on hierarchies where the shoot might one-shot you, so that's something you could use a defensive for, like Fade or Flash Heal. All right, so for the last boss, the big thing with the last boss is totems. Um, as far as damage cooldowns go, I don't really advise saving them for totems, just because they roll over like into totem phases. So I pretty much on this fight, I just mostly send on CD. The only time I would maybe hold is if we were gonna like try to line up a lust or something, but more often than not, just send on CD and you'll be okay. So the big things with the totems is they need to die as soon as possible. I kind of went over this in the other dungeon guide I made earlier in the season, but generally with these totems, what you want to do is pull your insanity, so that way as soon as they spawn, you can dump a bit of damage into them. They need to die as soon as possible because if the cast goes off, if this Rotting Burst cast goes off, this fight gets a lot harder. It does a lot of damage to everyone, and everyone gets a damage done debuff, meaning everyone's doing less damage. So the successive totems are going to get a lot harder to kill. So you want to make sure you're saving damage to burn these down and that this cast never goes off. And as a Shadow Priest, like I said, you can pretty much just pool Insanity to dump DPs into them as soon as they spawn. You want to have at least 2 or 3 DPs ready and available to go. And then also make sure you dot them with Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch as soon as they spawn. But that's pretty much the main mechanic of the fight, is just the totems. She's gonna do like this frontal that'll spawn this big circle here. This circle always moves in a like a followed pattern where it'll just go around the room. You want to position yourself in the middle of the room because you can just do like small stutter steps and just dodge the circle that way. Whereas like if I was standing over here on the outside and the circle came over here, I'd have to run all the way over here. And if I was positioned right here, I would just need to take like a couple small stutter steps to the side and I'd be okay. So positioning is important there. So you're going to see here she casts another totem. I have a bunch of insanity ready to go and I just dump a couple DPs. So also when she casts, she'll do like a cycle of like 2 totems. So on the first totem, she doesn't do this AoE, but on the second totem, she will do this AoE. When this AoE goes out, you want to make sure you have defensives up. You want to make sure you are pressing stuff like Fade, Flash Heal, and Desperate Prayer. This would be a good thing to disperse. The problem is that like while this is going out, you also need to be doing damage, so you're not really helping the group by being in disperse. So that's kind of like a thing you just need to gauge for yourself. Like if the totem's close to dying, maybe you can use disperse and then cancel it really quickly. So you're going to see that does a good bit of damage. And then also, if this does go off for whatever reason while that AoE happens, it's a really bad overlap, and you can pretty much just die instantly. So that's another reason you want to make sure you have defensives up at that point. But after that, the fight just kind of goes on a cycle. She'll do the rock cloud, which is the big circle. It's just a frontal you have to dodge. And then we'll go into totem number 1, and then again into totem number 2 with the AoE. And just always make sure you are saving damage for these totems. You can also hold Void Torrent for them. Just make sure you're not holding it for too long. Like if this comes up, like if this came up right now after that totem died, I would probably just press it immediately. Mostly because this is going to also help gen some insanity for you with the tendrils that you spawn from the capstone. So while it does do a decent bit of damage, it also generates a lot of insanity for you. So you don't want to hold this for too long. But yeah, that's pretty much the fight. Just rinse and repeat totems. The big thing with this fight is the totems and making sure that you burn them down ASAP. And I think that pretty much covers everything for Brackenhide Hollow. Stay tuned for the next video, guys, where I'm going to be going through another dungeon and I will be going over the boss fights, pretty similar, just like this one. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all in the next video.